That's why she had fairy dust.
She did have.
So hi, everybody. Welcome again to the Leverage Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Octavio Venturas. I have with me, as always, the preeminent cardiologist, Dr. Federico Macy, otherwise known affectionately as Dr. Suave. We're very excited for our guest today, Angelica Azbel. I think you guys are going to enjoy her story, and I think this is going to be one of the best pods we've done. So, Fred, tell me a little bit about how you guys know each other.
Well, in two ways. We have a common friend who had a birthday party about 3 years ago. And that was our common friend, Jim, who has now relocated. But at that party, we happened to sit beside each other, and we started talking.
He was drinking a spicy drink, so I was like, "Are you Latino?"
Yes.
And we vibed on
I
it.
was having an extra spicy, I think, Bloody Caesar. And, I like them with some bite. And so we
I
started
know
talking.
I've had your cooking before.
Yeah. There has been a reaction in you, right? Immediately running for the outdoor hose and calling the fire department. These guys can't handle anything.
No, I'm the same way. I make salsa verde every week, and my dad's like, "That's too much serrano."
But it's a good tradition. So we hit it off, and she started telling me a little bit about her background and story. And I immediately said, I think you ought to tell your story. There is a huge audience, especially young girls, young women, who would find it tremendously uplifting and encouraging, especially those from a troubled background.
Okay, so would you share with me a little bit about...
Sure. Where do I start? My parents. I grew up very abusive before everything kind of went down. So my mother and father were always fighting, and I saw a lot of things that I shouldn't have saw or seen when I was young. My parents were drug dealers, and so
Was that here in Dallas?
It was here in Dallas. I would stay up school night on a Tuesday, maybe till 4 a.m., counting trash bags of money with my father. And there were times where I was ducking from gunshots because we were getting robbed, and running from a helicopter in the car, getting shot at. I mean, my sister.
This is in Colombia or here?
It's here. It's
here.
here. But my sister's been kidnapped, and we had to go rescue her back. And that's when I got shot at in the back of a pickup truck, and so I was in the crossfire.
How old were you guys at the time?
About 7.
And how many siblings were there?
Two more, so 3.
So were you the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
So
okay.
basically the mother. So I get the Mother Day text from both of them. It's hard, and my mother's still in prison for doing the same thing. So they spent about 10, 13 years in prison.
Do you know what they were dealing?
My mother, she only sold cocaine. That's even worse, right? But my father sold the green stuff, the weed. So we would go to like Louisiana and make road trips, and I'd go with him, and we'd go to like the Horseshoe and do the dealing there. Saw a lot.
Wow.
A lot. And so...
So was your father working for somebody, or was he on his own?
I think he was on his own. I never saw him, like everyone came to him, and he was kind of both the boss and the middleman. So he would know like the people from Oak Cliff and talk to the people in Louisiana, and everybody kind of trusted him because he was the güero,
right?
The white guy.
So he was not Hispanic.
He has some Hispanic in him, but my mother's the one that's all Latina.
All Latino. So your dad more Anglo. Where did he grow up?
He grew up in Oak Cliff. He went to Sunset High School. He never knew his father. Still doesn't. Kind of a one-night stand baby. Slept in the park sometimes because he grew up in an abusive home with her boyfriends, and so it carried kind of over to us. And so so
the story repeated.
It repeated with him. So they went to prison, and we ended up in shelters. And so
were you
by shelters? Do you mean foster care?
Foster care.
Foster care. Was that with families or in an institution?
That's where it gets a little tricky. I mean, there were times that we stayed with the aunt, and then there were times that we stayed in different shelters. I think I went to maybe a total of like 17 schools. And I remember going to one consistently in West Texas, and my aunt was there, and she was trying to raise us, but she was already in her 50s, and she had 8 kids.
Is this your mom's mom or your dad's mom?
Thank you for asking. I'm not good at clarification. My mother has a mother that passed away from cancer when she was 28, and so it's her sister, so like a grandma aunt. And so she kind of took care of us and looked after us.
So she was a little too old, but was it stable there?
It was stable, but like if we did one thing to like piss her off, like get a boyfriend or something, we'd get kicked out. And then we'd have to like call CPS, or if we weren't, being good, or if one kid, my sister, she'd go off and like smoke weed or whatever, and I'd get in trouble for it. Somehow it was my fault. And so she would just kick all of us out. And so there we are with our trash bags, going to another shelter. And so we lived everywhere: Arlington, Plano, McKinney, Abilene, Lubbock, La Mesa. It was San Angelo too. It was a lot of moving.
And why were you moving around so much?
My parents had to terminate their rights, but the only quest was, hey, I'm going to terminate my rights. You are going to take care of their tuition, but you cannot separate the three from each other. That's just the only condition we have, and we'll meet you in the middle and give our rights up. And so
this is with the state?
That was with the state.
Right.
And so no shelter could have the capacity for 3 little girls, and especially our age difference. We were like 13 and 11 and like 7. So it was weird because like a certain age of girls would sleep in the same room, and a certain age of older girls would sleep in a different room.
Sure.
So they would like lock the cabinets, lock the fridge. So we had a very strict shelter thing. It was very hard to understand the dynamic and why we felt like we were in prison also. It was very hard.
Were your parents trying to get custody of you, or the 3 of you, at some point when one of them would come out of prison?
Well, my dad went in first, and my mom kind of got us for a little bit, and she got us for maybe 7 months before she came, and they took her too. But while they took her, we kind of had to hug her and take the cocaine out of her bra and give it to like a cousin to get rid of it. And so that was traumatizing too. But
literally that moment, you remember that?
Yeah, I remember all of it. It was terrible. I remember the way it smells, and the solution of it all, and we had to get rid of it. And so I gave it to my cousin, who I'm sure kind of...
She knew she was going to be...
in time. And it was so crazy.
Taken to jail at that time.
Yeah, they were like, oh, she's going to get out. And then like 4 weeks would go by, and I'm like, okay, when is she going to get out? And so 4 months, and then 2 years. And I was like, all right, she's never getting out. I just have to face that. And
is she still there for the same charge?
She got out, but I was already 21. Like I was already doing my life when she got out, and I kind of had to take care of her and help her get on her feet. And she got married, and then she went through a nasty divorce, and he kind of like took all the money from her, took our Christmas presents. And so she had nowhere to turn, and she was already working 2 jobs. So she went and took a shortcut and sold cocaine and got busted because it was a setup. And so she went in last year, and she has 3 more years to go. So total of 17 years of my life.
Impressive.
Prison.
So during that time when you guys were teenagers, most of the time you were in West Texas?
Most of the time.
At a local high school, I imagine?
La Mesa, Texas specifically. It was a middle school and a high school.
Right.
It was very difficult too, because everyone that grew up there had their mother and their father, and we were like the outcast. And
right.
They would bully us and make fun of us, and so it was even harder.
What would they say to make fun of you?
Oh, you little orphan, or, oh, sorry, you don't have your mommy and daddy here to help you with your homework. That's why you're failing this class. Or it got
just cruel.
Yeah, very cruel.
Right.
And, no one ever taught me like how to be a teenager and like what to do if a boy touched you, or, you know what I mean? So when I did have a boyfriend, like I didn't know how to handle things, because before I was molested. So like I wouldn't let anyone touch me. I was very like, hey, don't touch me kind of thing. And I finally dated someone, and he was like a high school jock, and I was like, oh my God, I found somebody I liked or whatever. And so I told you one time I went drinking, and it was prom. I actually didn't drink. I didn't drink until I was 19 or 20 when I came back to Dallas. But I went to this prom party, and I was a cheerleader, and the guy was a football player, and he had a house party at his other friends, and they were like the popular kids in school. And so he's like, hey, let's go outside. I want to kiss you. And he kissed me, but he was drinking, and he lifted up my skirt and, kind of just took advantage of me. Yeah. And so after that, everyone gave me hell from it, and, called me alley cat and things like that, and picked on me even more because of that. And so I had just like this urge after I graduated school to just kind of finish school, and it motivated me the more they picked on me. And, not that long ago, they came and visited for a bachelor party, and I took them out and purchased all their drinks, and I called them out, and they didn't say anything. And then I sent them on an Uber like 2 hours away, and kind of, it was like a way of getting back.
Yes. But
sounds like you got closure from that.
I did. And it was very, my sisters were like, that was 10 years ago. But I was like, you never, when someone damages your reputation like that in high school, it's like very like, you don't understand the embarrassment and the shame that I had to go through,
Then I imagine during those years, there was some counseling involved from time to time. for all of you?
Sometimes there was, but I don't remember deeply into it. I really just started doing a lot more like now in my later 20s.
Right.
It was very difficult because every time we did see a therapist, we moved. And in a Hispanic culture, we didn't believe in therapy. Well, not me, but, my aunts thought that the medicine would make us crazy and things like that. And
Right.
so, they're the type of people that would like rub an egg on you when you're not feeling good. So they just didn't believe in
More traditional.
Yes. Or Sangre Cristo, go to church.
Go to
so
church
that's
and
kinda-
pray. Right.
They did things that way.
Quackery.
Yes.
Well, traditional beliefs, not based in randomized clinical trials, right? There's not, I'll rub 2 eggs on your forehead, put a old tortilla on the wall, and that's it. Your demons are gone,
They
you're
felt
good.
better the next day, so it must have worked.
Right.
Fred
None of
is
that, right?
Fred is very big into the actual data and the randomized clinical trials. We have a lot of people who come on with anecdotal evidence and
The Mexican communities do have the curanderos, right? The healers. And they have all kinds of roots and
curanderos
plants.
is the traditional healers
Right. And,
They
for the
come and,
non-Spanish speakers out
pray
there.
over you and
Insects.
they put all that.
they do la limpia.
The
Okay, that's what
limpia,
it's called.
yes.
Which
What
is
does la limpia mean?
Well, it's basically cleansing you of demons that are occupying you or your immediate space, and getting that demon out of your brain. So, for example, if a parent catches you smoking weed or doing some other drugs, they'll take you to a curandero to get a limpia with the hope of getting that demon out of you.
It
And
was
so they believe
torture.
in it.
It was a little torture, but
Yeah.
we went through it and figured it out.
So you went through that as well.
I did, and I went through the cards, the loteria. So I'd go
Yes.
and they'd tell my mom, "You're gonna get arrested if you don't stop selling drugs, and you're gonna go for a long time." And terca, terca means like she was stubborn and still doing it, and so they told her in the cards, and so a lot of people prayed to like this other god, Santa Muerte. My mom tells me not to speak or talk about it because it's real. I guess I don't know.
Yes. You might get, jinxed.
Yeah.
But
If she thought it was real, why doesn't she listen to them?
Well, they're like, there's good and bad kind of idols. So.
but it goes back to the type of parenting that at some point doesn't learn from prior generations and repeats this over and over. When you have 3 innocent young lives to take care of. You and I are both parents. You and I have responsibilities, daily, weekly, yearly. And so it's hard for some people to imagine that Angelica's parents would do this year after year after year, knowing the consequences and knowing the impact that it would have.
So I'm very curious. Were you ever tempted to use drugs? You said you didn't drink.
I didn't drink.
Or did the experience make you the opposite, where you were like, never?
It totally fucked me up. I saw them and I didn't want to be anything like them, and I still don't to this very day. But I'm grateful that I'm here. And I did smoke pot a couple times, and then I realized that it just was disturbing my brain growth, so I shouldn't do that at an early age. And then I started drinking, and that was helpful for me. I mean, I couldn't just smoke my brains out all the time. It wasn't a good
So you're saying drinking was helpful for you? In what way?
Not in an excessive way.
No, in social.
Four drinks a week here and there.
Okay.
But,
Right.
it wasn't like
And you were
overdoing
19,
it.
20 already.
19 or 20. But to deal with it, it was a lot, and it's very hard now because I'm in my master's program and in criminal justice. So now I'm learning about like prostitution and pimps, and I'm learning about prison and learning about gay rights. But more specifically, the prison really got to me because I just learned that most 70%, or if not all, people incarcerated in prison have the literacy of a 4th grader. So I just learned that, and it's very sad,
Right,
Yes.
sure.
And I suppose during those years, perhaps not as much in you, but maybe your sisters, the academics also lagged behind. It was almost
Completely.
inevitable, right? You said you went to 17 different schools.
Yes, absolutely. And
Wow.
it was terrible. So by the time I moved back to Dallas, I was 18, and I was taking the buses and the trains, and they set me up at this little aftercare house, and they said, "Hey, every Thursday we meet, you have to pay rent every week. When you're 21, you go to this aftercare place if you don't have a place to stay, because most of the time when you age out of CPS, you are homeless." So they kind of helped me get on my feet, and I was going and taking the buses and the trains, and I was kind of in an area by Lemon, So I was like, gosh, I saw all these Mercedes and I saw all the BMWs and I saw the Range Rovers and the G-Wagons. And I was like, looking at all of them, like, well, how did they get that?
Right.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. So this whole trajectory and the horrific impact that it has, certainly in your case, but in millions of people throughout the U.S. and worldwide, was that what sort of galvanized you to say, okay, I'm going to do something with my own life, not follow that path, pursue an education, and be an influencer to young people?
Absolutely. I mean, it connects now even more that I'm married and, now that I'm converting to Judaism, but learning that we're not here for ourselves. We're here for what God wants us to do. And so I feel that more than ever to share the story and help other people. And it was very hard to find that within, but music was always my key to my depression, and music really helped me. My father was also a DJ when I was younger, so I had a connection with it, and it drove me. And I knew when I saw all those fancy cars, I said, well, they had to start with college at least. So I went to college, and I showed up and I took the test, and they were like, oh, I'm sorry, Miss Gossett, you're not college level ready. And so I walked out and I cried. And then 2 hours later, I go back in and I'm like, well, make me ready. What do I have to do?
Right. So that was a tremendous realization and then courageous.
Well, you had the resilience to not
moment.
give up.
Yeah.
Most people would have just said, well, guess it's not for me.
Yeah.
Where's the pole?
I'm going back to my menial labor situation or depend on government handouts.
Yeah.
Which has not been your story at all.
Yeah, and you have to worry about rent every month. That's just not how I wanted to live, and I didn't think that it was fair to put, I went through hell. So I was like, well, I didn't go through all that to just not do anything, and so I had it in my dream to be a prosecutor and, take down all the drug dealers and take down all the pedophiles. But I'm not very good at confrontation. I get too emotional. So I just decided to, go and pursue my PhD and, be a professor or something. So that's the route I'm going in.
That you have found the area where you excel at.
Yes.
What happened to your sisters?
Oh, man. Well, they both got pregnant. One got pregnant at 18, and she had to take care of her daughter very young. And so I had to help her get her GED down here. She moved down here, and then 3 years later, she started at a dance club, and so kind of became an exotic dancer and dated a drug dealer that just died January, got shot in the neck because, I tell my sister, I'm like, I understand we come from this, but we don't have to be like this. And,
how does she take that advice?
Oh, she's like, she's been smoking weed since she was 14. So it's very hard to get out of that psychosis to tell her that it's, because she has all the Gucci on and the MCM and the Louis on.
Yeah, and the brand name.
Yeah, and so she's kind of like, you're just jealous, and has, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to let you learn on your own. And so the guy, I said, this guy's a bad guy. He's disrespectful to me. He's not going to respect you. Not only that, I said, drug dealers, there's only two ways to live that life. You're either going to die because you owe someone money or you have too many enemies, or you're just going to go to prison. So you choose your path. And so she was with them for 4 years, and in January.
Is he the father of her kid?
Oh, no. Hers is her high school sweetheart. But she kind of went into that route of the life, and that's where she ended up in. And the guy had an enemy, and he died just this January and got shot in the neck. And then the baby, I call her the baby, she's 23. She got pregnant at 14. So it was very hard to help her. And because the guy kind of basically had to raise her too. And so we had already bought her a quinceañera dress. We were so excited because me and my other sister were old enough to afford to help her to buy it or work hard, and my mother was out of prison, so we wanted her to have the quinceañera because
that you never did, right?
Yes, and so we went and bought the dress.
So for people who don't know, quinceañera is a traditional dance when girls turn 15.
Yes,
right.
That is very, very big in the Mexican community here in the United States and also
in Mexico, of course. Yeah.
And it is like the almost like the bar mitzvah for the Mexican.
Exactly.
Is that a good way to put it?
And the family sacrifices saves a lot of money over time.
It's a great party. If you ever get a chance to go to a quinceañera, go.
You see them at the Arboretum and other places too.
Yeah.
They're photographs, right?
So you guys are getting ready for her quinceañera, and then
we buy this fantastic Cinderella dress, and I'm like, oh, it's to die for. It's beautiful. And man, I was so ready to celebrate. And she didn't tell us, but like 3 months in, we were already like, so maybe 3,000 deep already with the investments we've put into this quinceañera with the dress and the shoes and the DJ
Right.
and the dancers, you know. So then she comes and tells us, she's like, I'm pregnant. And so that was very like a slap in the face, because we wouldn't have gotten mad at her if she would have told us prior to us spending the money, because when we spent the money, it was non-refundable. So then she ended up getting with this guy, and it didn't work out. My sisters both had commitment issues, so it was very difficult for them to see my mother and father have that commitment issue. So I didn't really expect much from an early age. I knew that something was going to happen with one of us, and I knew either it was going to be one of us getting pregnant or getting on drugs. And I'm just happy that it's not the other part. You know, I'm okay with the pregnancy, because that will give you strength to go through it. Most people commit suicide in different situations like this, and so. Now they have 9 and 10-year-old kids. The 23-year-old is working for HR now, and she lives with my father. She's trying to get on her feet so she can have her own place, but she's definitely not the one to like go take a shortcut. You know, she's learning, and I've been telling both of them, I said, the only way out of your struggle is education, and you know, no one's going to take you serious, not even a guy. You know, if a guy, you know, and for you, when you date, you know, if you don't date a guy that has an education, do you think he's going to commit to you? Like, you know what I mean? So I've been trying to put them on game and kind of help them.
Why do you think, besides being the oldest, why do you think that you see life more realistically than they do? Why do you think?
My husband asks me that every day. He's like, why are you different? At one point, I thought I was born into the wrong family. I really did.
We all have felt that way at some time or another.
To be honest, I had to be the role of, I had to help my mother and father kind of get their life together now. Like, you know, and be the parent for both of them and help my siblings. And I think that I'm the only one in the family that they can rely on and call and know that I'm the only one that does have my life together, and they can call me if they need advice or guidance. But it was very hard growing up and being the only one that was strong, because I couldn't really be emotional or share those emotions because I was always seen as the leader. So it's a lot of pressure on me to be the leader all the time.
Was there a particular individual that perhaps was a role model for you outside of, you know, your parents that may have given you some of that strength?
I had 2 cousins that went to college, and they were my mother's sister granddaughter. She went to tech and she graduated with her bachelor's degree. And then I had a younger cousin. We had the same birthday. We're a year apart. I'm 29. She's 28, and she lives in Palestine. And her father was also in prison, who's my mom's older brother. And she only had her mother, and they had already finished or went through, you know, and got their master's and their bachelor's. And I was like, oh my God, like I never knew anybody that had a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. So I was like, well, if they can do it and they're half as fucked up as I am, then I can do it, you know? And so put myself through it, and, you know.
And how old were you when you realized that it was something that was a possibility?
Reach,
yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I think it took like 4 years to take that in. You know, the first 2 years was non-credited work that I had to do because I wasn't considered college level ready. So it took me 6 instead of 4 years to finish, and they were not counted towards my degree. But when I finally got my little associate's degree, I was like, oh my God, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, because if I'm here with halfway, there's no way the other 2 years are unattainable. And so that's when it hit me 4 years in, and I didn't, you know, give up. And I cried every week at least, you know, because I didn't have anyone to help me. Those cousins lived out of town, so I couldn't always like pick up the phone and be like, could you help me on this, you know?
And during that time, were you also working part-time to support yourself?
Yeah. So I was working, I started as a leasing agent, and I worked my way up all the way to a property manager throughout my college years. And so I spent full time doing that. And on my lunch breaks, I'd hurry and, you know, spend 20 minutes eating, and the 40 minutes that I had left, do homework. And I would go 2-person, you know, drive right after work. They'd let me out 15 minutes early to make it to class. And then I would bartend on the weekends and, you know, make ends meet, because I knew that I needed a car, and I needed a nice car, not like a brand one, but I needed one that wasn't going to break down on me. And I knew that I didn't have the help to call if I needed one. So I had to get a good car, and I had to get an apartment that was in a safe neighborhood, that was secure, that had gates. So not everything was. It just was very expensive for me. So I had to work 2 jobs. You know,
a lot of obstacles. You know, it's impressive that many people take this for granted, especially people who have lived, you know, have had the opportunity, the privilege.
Well, where we live, there's a lot of people that grow up with privilege, and they don't take it I can think of some individuals, we don't want to call anybody
in
out
our,
on
in
that.
our own families who, perhaps take for granted. I don't want to be overly critical here, but the fact of the matter is, vast numbers of kids grow up without the two-parent family, with tremendous struggles socioeconomically, who have to fend for themselves very early and often take to the streets and become targets and pawns of unscrupulous individuals.
Exactly.
Right? So in your case, Angelica, what's amazing is you could have gone the wrong way at any second. You could have gotten pregnant at 15, 16, 17, and so on. You could have, gotten into the
You
drugs.
could have embraced the alley cat persona.
Yeah.
Some girls do. They're like,
Yeah.
that's who I am.
I do
Correct.
now. Now I'm, none of them finished college, so I'm like, haha,
Yes.
Right, but you didn't say, okay, this is my identity now. You
No.
said, no, I want to go away from this, and that's
Yeah.
rare.
It's very rare, and
Only 3% of foster youth graduate with
Yeah.
a 4-year degree.
Right.
only 3%. It's so sad because for whatever reason, I go back to that responsibility of parents of being derelicts or being completely irresponsible.
Well, and as humans, we pattern ourselves after what we see. Monkey see, monkey do. So
Perhaps so. Yes.
most people, when they have parents that are not ideal, most people just copy the behavior. It's the easiest path of least
Yes.
resistance. Something in your character or in your
In
experience
her makeup, yeah.
led you to reject that and say, actually, I don't want to get high all the time. I want to graduate. And the trick is to find out what it was about you and how do we reproduce that? Because we have a crisis
Yeah.
of kids that aren't.
And going to school and taking it as serious anymore.
Nationally, yes.
I think that social media glamorizes a lot of things. And I think, I deleted my Instagram completely in 2017 and I never went back. So that was always helpful for me because I never compared my life. I never had anyone to compare it to. And that really helped me. And I think that would be like where I would start is deleting all social media because that's what I had to do to put my head down. There, I missed out on the parties, the promotions of other people, but they understood. If you ask any friend of mine, I couldn't spend time with her or go out to the club with her because she was always studying, and I would dump a guy if I was making a B. Like I took it really serious,
No, that's amazing. But a lot of people recently have said that the whole social media for young people, certainly teenagers, should be either abolished completely, which would be an extreme position, but certainly limited in its scope. And we know from studies that young people who use it 2 hours a day or less are the ones that are going to do better in life than those that have more screen time per day
I agree
on
with
endeavors that are non-academic.
Yeah.
So you would discover that early for yourself without anyone prompting you to do so.
Correct. And my husband always surprisingly asks me how, and it's very difficult to comprehend that too. But it's also difficult for me to comprehend how could someone not want the best for themselves? That's what I don't get. And I think that's what I did, how could you not want the best for yourself?
Well, I think it's a question of perspective. So, perfect example, in your sister's mind, the bags and the Gucci, that's as good as it gets.
Oh, I
Yes.
know.
And you must be jealous if you're not accepting that that's. But where did she get that idea? She got that idea from social media, from online.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is, the wealthiest, most successful people, they don't even necessarily have designer stuff.
I agree.
Exactly.
Stealth wealth is what they're doing now because
Yeah.
they don't want to be targets.
Yeah.
Yes.
But try to explain that to your sister.
Yeah.
It's like the old pearls before swine.
It is
If
true.
if she doesn't get it, if that's not where her mind's at, then there's no way she can comprehend it. Even though all three of us sitting here easily accept it.
Intuitively know it.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we don't care about that stuff. It's
Yeah. I don't
Shallow
care
and
for it
superficial.
either.
Right.
It doesn't love you back at night.
all right.
No, and you're not going to get buried with it. I mean, you are going to take your
Exactly.
education with you, but you're not going to take a bag with you, And so I love getting the bags with no logos. I've been doing it for a while. I don't think you've ever seen me
No.
with a designer bag.
No. And then you've moved on to another phase, which is talking to young girls and women at what middle schools?
At Garcia Middle School in Oak Cliff.
In Oak
and,
Cliff.
Adamson High School. I've been judging and helping with the cheerleaders and the dance team.
Right.
And there's some that can't always buy their uniforms, so we help out a little bit or buy the pom-poms here and there. But I do see a lot of still bullying, and I see a lot of kids that are 12 or 14 coming to school with hickeys on their neck. And so that hurts me to see that. And so I spoke to the principal at Garcia, and I said, I think, you know, you need to have someone here to do like an etiquette class or something and do a presentation about why it's not ladylike to have hickeys, or why are you late to class? You know, it's rude, it's disrespectful. Why are you not dressing up? Why are you in your pajamas? You know, things like that that they should learn.
How involved are the parents in those communities with the kids?
They're not as involved. And if they are, you know, they're like, it's sad to say because it's a very, very limited area. You know, it's like a poor neighborhood, but we're going through, you know, gentrification. Everything's changing now. But, you know, some of the kids' mothers are working like at the zoo as a cashier, so it's very hard for them sometimes to get what they need or have someone to look up to in general, or have the motivation, you know. And it's I see all the parents. I know sometimes you can just tell when someone goes to the gym, you know. So if you're not going to the gym and you're not showing your kid you have discipline or sacrifice, which is the minimum. I mean, what are you doing? Looking in the mirrors with your eyes closed or what? You know,
exactly.
You got to be an example. And it sucks, you know. And my family or my sisters, you know, they do tell me all the time that I'm stuck up, or I have an ego, or I think I'm better than everyone. And it's very hard to take that, but I have to also understand that not everybody that I know is going to be educated, or, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I can't choose my family.
Well, nobody's better than anybody else intrinsically, but there's behaviors that are better than other behaviors. That's the whole point of the Leverage podcast, is trying to get to the heart of what is the proper behaviors, what is the best way to live your life. And there's no question that certain behaviors lead to suffering, death, disease,
poverty,
jail.
And other behaviors spiral upward. I mean, it's in the Bible. To those that some have been given, I'll give everything. To those I've only given a little, I'm going to take that way as well. Life works in spirals, and if you don't get on the right side of the spiral, you're going to suffer. And is that a better way to live?
No.
Yeah.
I think
it's better to live on the right side of the spiral than the wrong side.
I think in Kanye West, in one of his songs, it's called City of Gods, and he talks about, you know, people won't do 4 years of college, but they'll do 25 to life. And that hit me because I took it as, someone's going to keep working those 9 to 5s and work a bartending job on the weekend because they rather do the 25 years of that versus sacrificing and going to school for 4 years.
Right. And, you know, now today, because of the cost of education, it seems to be a more difficult endeavor for many, but there are many careers and technical careers where people who are not academically inclined can still do and do extremely well and be
CDLs
both productive and entrepreneurial. Right?
I agree. I think that, you know, anything more than 6 months is definitely worth putting your hat down, and whether it's a barber, a dental assistant, you could later on climb the ropes to those careers too, but it also depends on who you're influenced by and who you're around, because if you don't show that you don't have the education, but you're busting your butt and you have the right friends, then people are going to be more inclined to hire you. And if you're dressing right and you smell good and you eat good, but if you're dressing like crap and then you're not educated, but you have this 6-month certificate and you do have bad friends and you are being influenced by them, then no one's going to see, they're going to see the difference. Just like what you said, you know, like how you carry yourself, how you eat, how you talk. I can tell by the way someone eats or by the way someone talks and the way they carry themselves that they don't care about their lives, you know, they don't respect themselves.
Yeah. Because at the end, that's what it's about. It's starting with yourself. And if your parents or were not there and you didn't have the right role models, then the goal is hopefully that someone in your life will help you to point you in the right direction. Absolutely. Where you can say, okay, I'm better than this, and I'm going to sacrifice and do everything to move in that direction and attain that success.
So it's something you said. You don't understand how people cannot do what's best for their life.
Right.
And that's also something, since I was a kid, that always flabbergasted me. Like, Dr. Suave here gives people advice. No, they come in and their heart functions at 10% of capacity, and he's like, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And then they come back 3 months later, and they're like, oh, doc, I didn't do any of them. And to you, that's like, why wouldn't you just do what the guy said?
Yeah, if LeBron James was the best basketball player, I mean, he probably is. I don't know, everybody.
Well,
everyone has different
not on this
perceptions.
podcast. But anyway.
But if a kid was 17 and wanting to learn how to play basketball, and LeBron James came and said, hey, if you eat this and wake up at this time and go to the gym this many times, they're going to do it. but it's hard for people to put themselves in that mindset.
Or when you don't have that type of body and physical talents.
Yeah. Or
Right?
to influence, because then you're being influenced to eat hot Cheetos and cheese.
Yeah, but this is, we live in a culture of celebrities, where the celebrities across multiple branches are the influencers. And that is not necessarily what is best for young kids.
Yeah.
Rather than, community leaders, the parents themselves, or you had, like you said, a couple of relatives who got degrees, masters and PhDs, who you looked up to and said, if they can do it, I can do it. So it's got to be everyday people that are the influencers, not a celebrity like a movie star or a sports hero of some sort, or
they have
some other
people
politician.
managing their social media
None of
accounts.
None of them should be important in our everyday lives.
Right.
And we should understand that now. I know it's difficult because they are promoted by social media, by legacy media, by cable networks, etc.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Yeah.
Right? I think Charles Barkley said that, hey, I'm not, please, I'm not that.
Yeah.
Don't think
don't wanna
I'm,
put the example,
don't want to
like,
be like me in
A to
terms
Z.
of, being an athlete or an actor. Be a productive member of society and pursue what you're good at and really go for it. You may have a dream of being a basketball player, but if you can't jump and you can't run, it's
You
not
might be
gonna happen.
Jokic. Then you might be Jokic. So, it's funny you should mention that. Fred, you've been part of my life and my kids' life, ever since we moved back to Dallas. And
more than 10 years ago.
You know how much effort I've put into getting Winston to
Get into sports.
Wow.
which he has zero interest.
Right. His talent is in artistic performance.
Well, he's now working out. This summer, he all of a sudden has found. And do you know why?
A girl.
No, it's because he got teased at school.
Oh.
And
that'll do it.
The ridicule of his peers, all the lectures you gave him, all the videos we showed him, nothing. 3 boys made fun of him one day, and now he's like, "Dad, I got to get in shape."
That'll do it, though. Having other people that aren't familiar with them calling your, my sister hears it one ear out the other, but when someone else says it, it's like, oh, I can hear it now.
Right. And you're like, that's what I've been saying for the last 5 years.
Yeah. Like, was it a different dialogue or is it just someone else? Because I have, I'm telling you the same thing. How are you not interpreting it correctly, So
how often do you go back and give back to the school? And is that one of the most rewarding things for you? And
oh my gosh.
do any of the young girls come up to you afterwards? Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. I go, well, we're on summer, so we're not really going to get back active
Right,
until
right.
July, but I started a little at the end of summer and help prep for like homecoming and going to cheerleading games and donating. But yes, I would spend time there and teach them dance routines that I learned when I was in cheerleading. Actually, fun fact, I tried out for cheerleading twice and didn't make it at that school. Then I tried out again the third time and made it. So, you tried in front of the whole school and everyone votes for you, but no one knew me the first 2 times, but I didn't give up. So
that tells you a lot.
Yeah.
About somebody.
Well, resilience.
Yeah. And so I told the girls that, and I said, you can do anything you put your mind to. And, sometimes they call me or, hey, they have me on TikTok, so they'll like follow me. Hey, Miss A, what are you doing? How are you? And I hope you're doing good. And I hope you're enjoying summer break. I have a question. Do you think this dress is appropriate to meet my boyfriend's parents in? Or,
oh, that's great.
So things like that. It's like having a lot of little sisters or little kids. And I think it's good practice for me. I'm not a mother yet, but it'll be fun. And I have 2 nieces and I love talking to them and showing them etiquette. And I've taken my nieces to high tea and showing them that environment. And that's what I've been trying to do with those girls, is kind of sprinkle a little of inspiration on there.
So, this is why Angelica, to me, is a person that has tremendous light to give.
Yeah, for sure.
It's genuine and it's self-nurtured. And it has, I think for her life is just beginning. She has so many great years to look forward to of helping so many people out there who are in need of such help. This is why we have to get involved in our communities. And those of us who have been fortunate to have an education and to have children and to understand, and across our different age groups, we can all add and cultivate those seeds of
Absolutely.
positivity
Absolutely.
in many people that need.
Well, and you never know. A little effort by you never know what kind of big impact it's going to make. I doubt your cousins realized that going to school was going to have such a big impact on you.
No, but I tell them that every now and then, and I'm grateful that they did do that because it changed my life, for the better. And I mean, if I were who I was 13 years ago, I wouldn't have made it with that mindset. I had to change my environment, and the environment is the most important seed to be in.
Absolutely. So with that, I think we should say some final wise words.
Well, please, if you guys like this podcast, please like and subscribe us on YouTube. You can rate us on Spotify. You can also subscribe on Spotify. We're on Instagram. I know you're not on Instagram anymore, but we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. This has been the Leverage Podcast. Angelica, thanks for joining us. Dr. Suave, once again, it's been wonderful. We'll see you guys soon. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.